Fresh food was brief. Stored food was life. In medieval England, survival did not depend on what could be gathered or cooked today, but on what had been prepared weeks or months earlier. Without refrigeration, food had to endure time, cold, damp, and decay. The success of a household was measured not by abundance, but by how well it planned ahead. Most food preservation began immediately after harvest. Grain was dried carefully and stored in barns or granaries raised above ground to keep out moisture and animals. Poor storage could ruin an entire year's supply. Bread was baked regularly, but grain itself was the real security. It could be ground as needed, stretched through shortages, and traded in times of need. Meat was rarely eaten fresh. When animals were slaughtered, preservation began at once. Salting was the most common method. Meat was packed in salt to draw out moisture and slow decay, then stored in barrels or hung in cool spaces. Smoking added another layer of protection, especially for pork and fish, drying the flesh while exposing it to smoke that discouraged insects and rot. These foods were not delicate. They were tough, salty, and meant to last. Fish followed similar rules. In coastal areas and along rivers, fish was dried, salted, or smoked to preserve it for transport and storage. Herring, cod, and eels were especially important, providing protein long after fresh supplies disappeared. Vegetables and fruits were stored according to their nature. Root vegetables such as turnips and onions were kept in cool, dark spaces. Apples and pears were stored carefully or dried. Beans and peas were dried completely and used throughout the year. Preservation was not a single technique, but a collection of habits shaped by experience. Dairy required constant attention, milk spoiled quickly, so it was turned into butter or cheese almost immediately. Cheese could last months if kept cool and dry. Butter was salted to extend its life. These foods were valuable, portable, and central to everyday diet. Storage spaces mattered as much as methods. Food was checked regularly, spoilage was expected and managed. Preserved food shaped daily cooking. Meals were built around what lasted, not what was fresh. Pottage, a thick stew of grains, vegetables, and preserved ingredients, was common because it could absorb small amounts of meat, fat, or flavor over time. Preservation allowed flexibility, not luxury. Food storage was also communal knowledge. Families shared methods, borrowed tools, and learned through observation. Failure affected more than one household. In villages where survival depended on cooperation, stored food was both private security and shared responsibility. But without these systems, medieval life would not have endured. Storage was not preparation for crisis. It was the foundation of normal life. To live in medieval England was to think months ahead with every meal. Fresh food passed quickly. Stored food carried families through seasons, illness, and uncertainty.